Coming up, a look at 7 key tips to know before your next visit to Universal Studios Florida.
Hello friends, David here with another top tips video in my Back to Basics week focusing on Universal. Today we look at the original park, Universal Studios Florida. Now this park has changed a lot over the years. It still amazes me. So no matter if this is your first time or just your first time in a couple of years, chances are something new has been added since your last visit. So today's tips will give you a refresh on everything you need to know before you go.
As usual, let's start with a one-day touring plan for this park. Now, you may be surprised to hear me say that Universal Studios is actually really tricky when it comes to building that perfect itinerary. It's mainly due to the fact that the park has an odd shape. There is somewhat of a cohesive loop that will take you through the park, but there's lots of branching out points. The 2 most popular attractions at this park that see the most consistent long wait times are located on opposite ends of the park. They are Harry Potter and the Escape from Gringotts and Despicable Me Minion Mayhem. Every iteration of this second ride has always suffered from having a long line. I remember when the Fantastic World of Hanna-Barbera used to see lines just as big as Back to the Future. And it's mainly due to the fact that the attraction has a low rider capacity. So, starting and ending with these 2 attractions is the best way to first map out your touring plan. But which to start with is the million-dollar question. If you have the Express Pass, you have nothing to worry about, because nearly every experience at this park offers an Express Pass line. And you can do your favorite rides in whatever order you want. There's one exception to that, but I'll discuss it later. But if you don't have the Express Pass and are visiting for the very first time ever, it may be best to let the park unfold to you in the way it was originally meant to be experienced. Start in Production Central with the Minions. Then hit all the rides as you head down to the end of New York. And then make a slight turn to hit Fast and Furious before looping down to Transformers, followed by the Hollywood area after that. If you don't cut through Hollywood in the middle of the day, you may miss some of the smaller shows here since they don't run all the way into the evening. So just keep that in mind. From here, you can then finish the day by touring through Kid Zone, Springfield, and World Expo, before ending your day in Diagon Alley. I think this is the natural progression that most guests would follow. But before I talk about my proposed second option, let me quickly touch on tip number 2, early admission. Like I mentioned in yesterday's video on Islands of Adventure, some guests will have the advantage of enjoying the park 1 hour before it opens to regular day guests. This is usually reserved for hotel guests staying on property and select pass holders at certain times of the year. But historically, early admission has always been geared towards the wizarding world of Harry Potter. So, here at Universal Studios, that means you can get on Escape from Gringotts before the rest of the crowds come in. But sometimes there are a few extra attractions open during early admission too. For the month of June, in fact, Despicable Me Minion Mayhem will be open for early admission. This is very common for most of the year, actually. So, if you're staying at a Universal hotel and maximizing your time with early admission, you are faced with a little bit of a challenge. If you want to do both attractions back to back before the regular guests come in, there will be extra walking. There's no way around it. This is why I suggest 3 days at Universal. Do 1 day at Universal Studios and 1 day at Islands of Adventure, and save that 3rd day for just Harry Potter at both parks. Then you won't have to worry about this problem. So I say use this time for just one. Now, a lot of Harry Potter fans will choose Diagon Alley for early admission and tour the rest of the land while it's still pretty quiet. But if you are traveling with little ones, I say hit Despicable Me first so you can avoid that hour wait time later. And then stick to that original touring plan suggestion. The wait time at Escape from Gringotts will die down at the end of the night and serve as a good finale. But remember, you can always use the single rider line to speed things up. At Universal Studios, 4 attractions officially offer a single rider line at the moment. They are Revenge of the Mummy, Escape from Gringotts, Men in Black Alien Attack, and Hollywood Rip Ride Rockit. Now, just in case you missed some of my earlier videos, I like to suggest the single rider line at attractions where there's more than 2 people seated per row. I've used the single rider line before at Hollywood Rip Ride Rockit and found that it only trimmed the wait time by a couple of minutes. And that's because it's really hard to fill empty seats when each row is designed for just 2 people. So at the Mummy, Men in Black, and especially at Gringotts, the single rider line moves much more quickly. Currently, these are the only rides at this park that officially offer a single rider line. But always keep your eyes peeled because I've seen single rider lines open up at Fast and Furious and Transformers. And remember, these lines will open and close throughout the entire day. If the line reaches capacity, team members will rope it off for a while until it dies down a bit, so you just have to be flexible. But allow me to circle back to that original touring plan suggestion. The only reason I don't always love starting in Production Central is because it sometimes doesn't line up with my favorite shows and restaurants later in the day. And I find myself waiting in a longer line than I'm willing to do at rides such as The Simpsons and Transformers. So on a recent trip, I did that same loop in the reverse order, and it actually worked pretty well for me. I started my day in Diagon Alley. Again, it's really nice and quiet if you're doing this during early admission. And then from here, I hit Springfield second, passing through Men in Black along the way. The Simpsons is similar to Skull Island at Islands of Adventure, where it sees an hour-plus wait time for the majority of the day, and I just don't think it's worth it. But the surrounding land is excellent, and I like to do an early lunch in Springfield before it gets too busy. From here, I then let my food digest a little bit by doing easy things like Kids Zone or a show in Hollywood. I then did the rest of New York and Production Central based on whatever wait times were looking good. This area is quite unique in that pathways connect rides in all sorts of ways. But I did a simple loop and ended with Minions and Hollywood Rip Ride Rockit. I think it's way more exciting at night. I also can't do this roller coaster first thing in the morning because it's a little too intense for me. I need a little bit of a warm-up. And I also like to end my day with dinner at my favorite table service restaurant here, which I will talk about later. So, in my humble opinion, I like to start in Diagon Alley and end in Production Central. If you're a first-timer, you may want to stick to that original plan, especially if you have smaller kids. A lot of their favorites will be right up front near the park entrance. Get here early and just knock them all out. But if you've got a few trips under your belt, try this reverse version out. I think it'll work really well during special events like Mardi Gras and the holidays too, when a lot of the evening offerings are on this side of the park.
As you can see, Islands of Adventure may have all of the intense roller coasters, but Universal Studios still packs a punch. In fact, in my humble opinion, this park is the better of the two when it comes to shopping, dining, and entertainment. So let's look at these other offerings a little bit more.
Let's start with the best places to eat. This park is definitely the better of the two when it comes to dining. There are some must-try snacks, perfectly themed quick service restaurants, and an excellent table service option. But if I were to choose the number one best place to eat at Universal Studios for a quick bite, it would definitely be Fast Food Boulevard in Springfield. Now, one reason I love this place is the range, because it's technically made up of different food stations. There's Luigi's Pizza, Cletus's Chicken Shack, the Frying Dutchman, and of course Krusty Burger. There's even Lisa's Tea House of Horror, if you're after some healthier options. Adjacent to Fast Food Boulevard is Moe's Tavern, where you can pick up the world-famous Flaming Moe. And while it's not technically part of Fast Food Boulevard, just outside there's Duff Brewery, Lard Lad Donuts, and Bumblebee Man's Taco Truck, which is my personal favorite. So, as you can see, there are tons of options in this small corner of the park. But I warn you that this area is extremely popular, and the lines are especially long right now because of how mobile food and drink ordering works. So pack your patience and try to come in those off-peak hours. If you're a Harry Potter fan, then you will definitely want to make a stop at the Leaky Cauldron, which of course is over in Diagon Alley. Like I've said before, this is my preferred restaurant in the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. The menu has a much better range over 3 broomsticks. There's a great ploughman's board, which will serve 2 people, a pretty decent cottage pie, and some good bangers and mash. If you're doing early admission and wake up very early to start your day in Diagon Alley, Leaky Cauldron is also a good option for breakfast. A second excellent option for breakfast is the Today Cafe, right at the junction of Production Central and Hollywood. This quick service restaurant is open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I particularly love the breakfast sandwiches here the most. But they've got some great dishes for lunch and dinner and some fantastic dessert options. If you stick to that original touring plan of starting with the Minions, this is another excellent place to grab a bite if you miss breakfast at the hotel. But just down the street in the New York section, you'll find my favorite table service restaurant. Finnegan's Bar and Grill is technically an Irish bar and one of 2 table service restaurants in this park. I love this place, and it has been hailed by Universal fans for years, especially during Halloween Horror Nights. I've now successfully dined at all the table service restaurants between both parks and can definitely say that this is the best of the bunch. One fan favorite appetizer is the potato and onion web, which is kind of a thinly shredded fried onions mixed with potatoes. You can even have this as a topping on a classic burger, which is their most popular item. And there is an excellent shepherd's pie here too. That was my personal favorite. But if you just want to grab a drink, you can also just head up to the bar and order up your favorite cocktail to go. But I say book a table here at the end of the night after you experienced all of the intense roller coasters. It will be the perfect nightcap. Another way to take a break in between the thrill rides is by enjoying some retail therapy. So let's look at the best places to shop. Universal has the classic post-ride gift shop down perfectly. If you want to see the full range of Transformers or Simpsons products, head to the gift shop at the exit of each of their rides. But allow me to highlight a few other stores that are pretty easy to miss. Since we're in the New York area, let's start with the Park Plaza Holiday Shop. This is the park's holiday store where you can find Christmas tree ornaments and more throughout the entire year. It's a relatively small shop, but offers the full range. Next, we have The Vault. which is located right across Transformers and sells merchandise based off of extinct Universal classics, like Back to the Future, Jaws, and Ghostbusters. If you remember the Universal Studios of the 90s, this is definitely a store you'll want to check out. Now, there used to be a range of products tied to both the original rides here and horror classics, but Universal has moved the monsters over to Hollywood. At the exit of both the Bourne Stuntacular and the Horror Makeup Show, you'll find the Five and Dime, where there is a fantastic collection of merchandise items inspired by the original Universal monsters. I also really like the items from the Bates Motel, of course inspired by Psycho. And right across the street is Williams of Hollywood, perfect for you vintage Hollywood fans. This store is open select days out of the week and sells real props used at Universal events and some films. Every visit to this store is different because there's always a new collection of items up for sale. Come a few weeks after Horror Nights, Mardi Gras, or the holidays, and you'll find some event props used inside the park. Now, since we are in the middle of Tinseltown, let's look at tip number 6, where to find characters and catch some great entertainment at this park. I find that Islands of Adventure has the more popular characters, but Universal Studios has better shows. And in this Hollywood area, you'll find the best of what's old and new. On one end of the street, you'll find the iconic Horror Makeup Show. The pre-show area features a wonderful collection of props from famous films. And the show inside takes you through a demonstration on how makeup and special effects artists pull off some gruesome looks in your favorite Hollywood blockbusters. Now, I must admit that this show has changed over the years. It leans more towards a comedic show than the gruesome horror fest it used to be. But it's still a fun look into the history of Universal's classic horror films. On the opposite end of the street is where you'll find the new Bourne Stuntacular. The live stunt show follows Jason Bourne as he's chased by a collection of bad guys across 3 continents. It's a really sleek, high-tech show that fuses live-action stunts with cutting-edge technology. Now, this is the one experience at the park that doesn't offer the Universal Express Pass at the moment. This is typical for the first year or so of a new ride or show. So come a good 20 or 30 minutes before your desired showtime to guarantee yourself a good seat. But another music-inspired show that you cannot miss is the Blues Brothers show over in the New York section. This show is of course inspired by the 1980 film starring Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi. It also featured a tremendous lineup of music legends, such as James Brown, Ray Charles, and of course Aretha Franklin. The tribute to great music is alive and well at this stage show, where Jake and Elwood drive in from Chicago and sing classic tunes along with Mabel and sax player Jazz. This is a really easy show to catch in between the rides, but just check the Universal app for up-to-date show times when you visit. And after the show, the cast will pose for some pictures as well. Which leads me to my next point. In terms of meet and greets, there's a pretty good collection of characters you can meet around this park. For example, just outside Transformers the ride, Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, and Megatron rotate to meet guests throughout the entire day. And just down the path is where you'll find Donkey from Shrek. And on some occasions, he will be joined by Shrek and Fiona. Fans of The Simpsons will find several characters dotted in different sections of the park. As you walk through Hollywood, keep your eyes peeled for this trailer. It's sometimes parked outside Mel's Drive-In, because it's here where you may catch Homer or Bart. But when in doubt, also check in between the Quickie Mart and the Simpsons ride for more characters. I've spotted Sideshow Bob here in the past as well. But little ones will want to make their way to Woody Woodpecker's Kid Zone for a great lineup of characters. At the moment, you will find SpongeBob, Patrick, and Squidward just outside the SpongeBob SquarePants store saying hi to their fans. But just down the path, Universal has also opened up DreamWorks Destination, replacing the Barney Stage Show. Think of this as a glorified meet and greet tied in with the dance party. Universal brings out a truckload of characters here, from Shrek, Kung Fu Panda, Trolls, and Madagascar. But there's one more way to see some fun characters and catch a great show, which leads me to today's quick tip. For the past few months, Universal has surprisingly been running a mini parade and nighttime show at Universal Studios. During the daytime, you may now catch a few floats from the Superstar Parade passing by. Instead of running the full parade at one time in the middle of the afternoon, Universal has individual floats following the parade route, and this is sporadic throughout the whole day. So at one point, you may see a Secret Life of Pets float pass on by, or Gru with his minions at another time in the day. The floats will usually start by coming out near Cafe La Bamba in Hollywood. They will then go all the way to the back of New York, right where Jimmy Fallon is located, and then turn completely around and travel back on the same path. Some floats will even end the tour and do a little stage show in Hollywood. So those who like to see characters will find it very easy to spot some of their favorites. And on select nights of the week, you can indeed catch a nighttime spectacular here. Universal's Cinematic Celebration is a lagoon fountain show that takes you on a nostalgic trip down Hollywood history. Paying tribute to modern-day classics like The Fast and Furious, and iconic films like Jurassic Park and E.T. Now, I do not know why, but Universal doesn't post specific performance dates online. But I find that the show is running on the weekends right now, from Friday nights to Sunday nights, right before official park closing time. But if you're like me and have a soft spot for nostalgia, don't skip on tip number 7. I know that most people come to Universal for the big thrills, but no trip to this park is complete without a ride on E.T. Adventure. This iconic dark ride is the only opening day attraction still in operation at Universal Studios. E.T. has outlasted Jaws, Back to the Future, and the original King Kong. In fact, it's the only ride inspired by the 1982 film still running anywhere in the world. Both Universal parks in Hollywood and Japan have already replaced this attraction. So if you want a slice of old school Universal and fly on your own bicycle into the stars, Florida is the only place that you can do it.
So there you have it, my friends, my top tips to know before your next trip to Universal Studios Florida. And there's one more video left in my Back to Basics week, but you'll just have to come back tomorrow to find out what it is. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and share it with all of your theme park friends. But until next time, thank you so much for watching. Please stay safe out there, and remember, if you can dream it, you can do it.